Captain Vex High stood before the massive viewing screen of the survey ship, Eternal Dawn. His forearms moved across the control panel as he watched the planet grow larger. For 3 months, his crew had traveled through deep space to reach this world. The long-range sensors had told them good news. This planet might be perfect for their people to live on. The Zephyrian Empire had been looking for new worlds for 200 years. Their home planets were getting too crowded. Billions of Zephyrians needed new places to call home. This planet in the Kepler 442 system looked like it could be the answer to their prayers. "Sir, we are entering orbit now," said Science Officer Krellina. Her voice carried excitement that she tried to hide. After so many failed missions, finding a good world would make them all heroes. Vexai nodded. Through the viewing screen, he could see the planet's surface. It had blue oceans and green land masses. White clouds moved across the atmosphere. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. "Begin full surface scans," Vexai ordered. "I want to know about the air, the water, the soil. Check for any signs of intelligent life." The bridge became busy with activity. 20 crew members worked at their stations. Lights blinked on control panels. Machines hummed as they sent scanning beams down to the planet below. Krellina was the first to notice something wrong. She stared at her screen with confusion. "Captain, I am getting some strange readings." "What kind of strange readings?" Vex High asked. "The life signs are very large, sir. Much larger than anything in our database." Vex High walked over to look. At her screen, numbers and shapes moved across the display. What he saw made his blood run cold. "These readings cannot be correct. Run the scan again." "I already ran it 3 times, sir. The readings are the same." On the screen, red dots marked the locations of life forms. But these dots were not normal size. They were massive. Some of the creatures below appeared to be as large as their spaceship. Others were even bigger. "Sir," called out another officer from across the bridge, "I am detecting movement in the northern continent. Something very big is moving through the forest." The main viewing screen changed to show a closer view of the planet's surface. The crew watched in horror as trees fell in a straight line across the forest. Something huge was walking through the woods, crushing everything in its path. "Magnify the image," Vexai said quietly. The screen zoomed in closer. What they saw made several crew members step backward. A creature the size of a mountain was walking through the forest. It had 6 legs, each one thicker than the biggest trees. Its body was covered in armor-like skin that looked harder than metal. Spikes grew from its back like the towers of a city. "By the 7 moons," whispered Krellina. "What is that thing?" Before anyone could answer, another officer spoke up. "Sir, I am detecting more creatures, much more." The viewing screen split into multiple images. Each image showed a different part of the planet. In the oceans, tentacles as thick as bridges rose from the water. Flying creatures with wings that blocked out the sun soared through the sky. In the deserts, snake-like beasts longer than trains slithered across the sand. "Sir, the southern continent," another crew member called out. "You need to see this." The main screen showed a view of what looked like a mountain range. But as they watched, the mountains began to move. What they had thought were hills and peaks were actually the backs of sleeping giants. Creatures so large that entire forests grew on their bodies were waking up. "This is impossible," Vexai said. "How can creatures this size exist? How do they find enough food? How does the planet support them?" "Captain," Krellina said, her voice shaking, "the acid levels in some of these creatures are off the charts. Some of them could melt through our ship's hull in minutes." More reports came in from all over the bridge. Flying creatures that could swallow their ship whole. Underground worms that carved tunnels through solid rock. Pack hunters that moved in groups of thousands. "Sir, I am detecting hive networks." reported the biology officer. Insect-like creatures have built structures that cover entire continents. The individual insects are each the size of a ground vehicle. Vex-High felt sick. This was not a world for colonization. This was a death trap. No intelligent species could survive on a planet like this. The creatures here were beyond anything. In their worst nightmares. "Sir, should we mark this planet as a Class X death world?" asked Kralena. Before Vex-High could answer, alarms began to sound all over the bridge. Red lights flashed as the ship's computer detected immediate danger. "Captain, one of the flying creatures is approaching our position," the pilot reported. "It is moving fast." On the screen, they could see a winged beast rising from the planet's atmosphere. It was heading straight for their ship. Its body was longer than 3 city blocks. Wings that could cover entire lakes beat slowly as it climbed toward space. "Raise shields. Move us to a higher orbit," Vex-High ordered. The ship's engines fired, pushing them further from the planet. But the creature continued to follow them. It seemed to have no trouble flying in the thin atmosphere near space. "Sir, that creature just released some kind of projectile," the pilot called out. "Evasive maneuvers," Vex-High shouted. The ship turned sharply to the left. A stream of acid flew past their position. The acid was bright green and seemed to eat through the empty space itself. "Sir, that acid would have destroyed our shields in seconds," reported the weapons officer. They watched the flying creature circle their position once before diving back toward the planet. It seemed to be studying them, learning about their ship. "This planet is far beyond Class X," Vex-High said. "We need to warn all ships to stay away from this system." But as he prepared to give the order to leave, something impossible appeared on their screens. "Sir," Kralena said quietly, "I am detecting artificial structures on the surface. That cannot be correct. Nothing intelligent could survive down there. Sir, I am sure of the readings. I see cities, roads, technology." Vex-High stared at the screen. In the middle of all that horror, in a world where monsters ruled everything, someone had built civilization. Someone was living down there among the creatures that could destroy entire fleets. "Sir, I am also detecting energy signatures that match starship technology," added another officer. "Who could build cities on a death world like that?" Vex-High asked. "Sir, I am detecting radio signals. Someone is broadcasting from the surface. Can you understand the language? It is not in our database, sir, but the signal patterns suggest high intelligence." Vex-High looked around at his crew. They all had the same expression of shock and confusion. Someone was living on this impossible world. Someone had survived among monsters that could crush starships. Someone had built a civilization in hell itself. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Kralena. Vex-High continued to stare at the planet below. Everything he knew about life in the galaxy said that this was impossible. No species could survive on a world like this. Yet the evidence was right in front of him. "Set up a communication array," he said finally, "but keep us at safe distance. We need to find out who is down there. We need to know how they survived." As the crew worked to establish contact, Vex-High could not stop looking at the planet. Somewhere below, in a world full of creatures from their worst nightmares, someone was living. Someone was thriving. The question that terrified him most was simple. What kind of species could make a home in a place like that? Captain Vex-High paced back and forth. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, 3 days had passed since they first detected the artificial structures on the death world below. 3 days of trying to understand how anyone could survive on that nightmare. "Planet, sir, the communication array is ready," reported Communications Officer Felvin. "We can try to contact whoever is down there." "Not yet," Vex-High said. "First, I want to know more about them. Send down a cloaked probe. Use the stealth technology. I want to see these beings before they see us." Science Officer Kralena looked up from her station. Sir, is that wise? If the creatures down there can detect our ship, they might detect a probe too. We have to take that risk. We need to know what we are dealing with. The probe launched from the ship's belly. It was small, no bigger than a person, and covered with technology that made it nearly invisible. The crew watched on their screens as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Probe has cleared the atmosphere, reported the pilot, descending toward the largest city structure. The main viewing screen showed what the probe could see. As it got closer to the surface, the crew could see the city more clearly. Tall buildings reached toward the sky. Roads connected different areas. Vehicles moved along the streets. This is impossible, whispered Kralina. How can a city exist here? As if to answer her question, the probe's camera caught sight of movement near the city's edge. A massive creature with 6 legs and claws like swords was walking toward the city walls. The crew held their breath, waiting to see the city destroyed. But the creature stopped at what appeared to be an invisible line. It sniffed the air, looked toward the city, then turned and walked away. Did you see that? Asked Thelvin. Why did it not attack? Maybe there is some kind of barrier, suggested Kralina. An energy field that keeps the monsters out. The probe moved closer to the city. As it did, the crew could see more details. The buildings were made from materials they did not recognize. Some appeared to be metal, but metal that seemed to be alive. Other buildings looked like they were grown rather than built. Sir, I am detecting energy fields around the city, reported the science officer. But they are not like any technology in our database. What do you mean? The energy patterns are biological, sir. It is as if living creatures are generating the protective fields. Before Vexhai could respond, the probe's camera focused on the city streets. What they saw made the entire bridge fall silent. Walking along the streets were small bipedal creatures. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and stood upright like Zephyrians. But they were much smaller. A Zephyrian could hold one in his hands. How small are they? Vexhai asked quietly. Based on the buildings around them, sir, they appear to be about half the height of a Zephyrian, maybe less. The crew watched in amazement as these tiny beings went about their daily lives. They drove vehicles, carried packages, and talked to each other. Some appeared to be working on the buildings. Others were tending to gardens. Sir, look at that. Kralina pointed to a section of the screen, near what appeared to be a park. Small beings that looked like children were playing games. They ran around, laughed, and seemed completely unafraid. Just beyond the city's edge, massive predators prowled through the forest. The children played while creatures that could eat their entire city watched from the trees. This makes no sense, Thelvin said. How can they be so calm? Do they not know what is out there? The probe continued to observe the city. As it did, the crew began to notice more impossible things. Some of the small beings were riding on the backs of creatures that looked dangerous. Not the massive monsters from outside the city, but smaller predators that still looked deadly. Are those creatures tame? Asked Kralina. They appear to be, replied the pilot, who was controlling the probe. Look, that being is feeding one of them by hand. They watched as one of the small beings offered food to a creature that looked like a cross between a wolf and a lizard. The creature ate from the being's hand, that allowed itself to be petted. Sir, I am detecting more settlements, reported another officer. The probe's long-range sensors show cities and towns across the entire continent. How many of these beings are there? Impossible to tell exactly, sir. But based on the size and number of settlements, there could be millions of them. Vexhai felt dizzy. Millions of these small creatures were living on a planet where a single one of the native monsters could destroy their entire civilization. Yet they seemed to be thriving. Take the probe closer, he ordered. I want to see how they interact with the environment. The probe descended until it was just above the city streets. From this close, they could see the beings more clearly. They had hair on their heads in different colors. Their skin was mostly pale, though some were darker. They wore clothing made from materials the Zephyrians did not recognize. "Sir, some of those materials look like they came from the creatures outside," observed Krelna. She was right. Some of the beings wore clothing that looked like it was made from monster hide. Others carried tools that appeared to be carved from creature bones or teeth. "They are using the monsters as resources," Vexhai said slowly. "But how do they kill creatures that size?" As if the universe was answering his question, the probe detected movement outside the city. A group of the small beings was approaching the city from the forest. They were not alone. Walking beside them were some of the monsters. Not the massive continent-sized creatures, but still beasts that dwarfed the small beings. The monsters were carrying what looked like harvested plants and materials on their backs. "Sir, those creatures are working with them," gasped Thelvan. The group reached the city gates, and the beings unloaded materials from the monsters' backs. They petted the creatures, gave them food, and sent them back into the forest. "This is beyond impossible," Krelena said. "They have domesticated Deathworld predators." The probe followed one of the beings as it carried materials into the city. They watched as it delivered strange plants to what appeared to be a laboratory. Other beings were working with the plants, extracting liquids and powders from them. "They are processing monster biology into usable materials," observed the science officer. "Sir, look at this," the pilot called out. The probe had moved to another part of the city. Here, they could see beings working with technology that incorporated living components. Computers that seemed to be part machine and part creature. Vehicles that moved like living animals but carried passengers like machines. "They have merged their technology with the planet's biology," Vexhai said in wonder, but the most shocking discovery was yet to come. The probe's sensors detected a massive underground complex beneath the city. The readings showed tunnels and chambers that stretched for kilometers in all directions. "Sir, there is an entire underground city," reported Krelana. "It is much larger than the surface settlement. Take us down there." The probe found an entrance and descended into the underground complex. What they found defied everything they thought they knew about civilization. The underground city was home to both the small beings and creatures that clearly came from the Deathworld surface. But these creatures were not prisoners or pets. They were citizens. Giant insect-like beings worked alongside the small bipedal creatures in what appeared to be factories. Creatures with multiple tentacles operated complex machinery while the small beings supervised. In one chamber, they saw what looked like a meeting between representatives of different species, all of them discussing something important. "Sir, this is not just survival," Thelvan said quietly. "This is cooperation. They have built a civilization that includes the planet's native species." Vexhai stared at the screen in disbelief. These small, fragile-looking beings had not just survived on a Deathworld. They had convinced the monsters to work with them. They had turned predators into partners. "Sir, the probe is being scanned," the pilot reported suddenly. On the screen, they could see several of the small beings pointing scanning devices at the probe. Red lights blinked on their equipment. "They have found us," Vexhai said. One of the beings appeared to be speaking into a communication device. Within minutes, more beings arrived. They surrounded the probe but did not attack it. Instead, one of them held up a device that began broadcasting a signal. "Sir, they are trying to communicate with us," Thelvan reported. "Can you understand their language?" "Not yet, sir. But they are using mathematical concepts, universal constants. They are trying to establish basic communication." Vexhai looked around at his crew. These small beings had discovered their hidden probe. They had technology advanced enough to detect Zephyrian stealth systems. And instead of attacking, they were trying to talk. "Sir, what should we do?" asked Krelena. Vexhai thought for a long moment. Everything about this situation violated Standard first contact protocols. These beings lived on a death world that should have killed them all. They had technology that seemed impossible. They had domesticated creatures that could destroy planets. "Open a communication channel," he said finally. "Let us see what they have to say." The communication signal from the planet's surface filled the bridge of the eternal dawn with strange sounds. Captain Vexhai listened as his translation computer worked to understand the language of the small beings below. "Sir, I am getting basic meaning from their transmissions," reported Communications Officer Thelvin. "They are asking who we are and where we come from. They seem curious, not hostile." "Respond with basic friendship signals," Vexhai ordered. "Tell them we are explorers from distant stars. Ask them about their world." For the next hour, the two groups exchanged simple messages. The beings on the planet called themselves humans. They said their world was named Earth 7, though they sometimes called it by another name that translated roughly as New Eden. "Sir, they are offering to share information about their history," Thelvin reported. "They want to upload data files to our computer. Is it safe?" Science Officer Krelina checked her instruments. "The data appears to be simple text and image. Files, no viruses or hostile code. Accept the transmission." The main viewing screen filled with images and text in the human language. The translation computer worked quickly to convert it to Zephyrian. What Vexhai read made his 4 hearts beat faster. The humans had not always lived on this death world. According to their records, they came from a planet they called Earth. 300 years ago, their home world began to die. Wars and environmental damage made it impossible to live there. "Sir, they built colony ships." Krelina read from the translated text. "Thousands of ships carrying millions of humans left their dying planet to find new worlds." The records showed that different human ships went to different star systems. This group had come to the Kepler 442 system because their long-range sensors suggested the planet might be habitable. "They made the same mistake we did," Thelvin observed. "They thought this was a normal world." But the next part of the human records was where things became impossible to believe. When the first human colony ships arrived at the planet, it was even worse than what the Zephyrians had found. The monsters were more numerous and more aggressive. The entire planet was locked in constant warfare between different creature species. "According to this," Krelina said slowly, "when the humans landed, the survival rate was less than 1%. Most colony ships were destroyed within hours of landing." Vexhai felt sick. How did any of them survive? The answer was in the next set of records. The surviving humans did something that no other species in the galaxy had ever attempted. Instead of trying to fight the monsters or hide from them, they began to study them. The records showed detailed observations of monster behavior. Humans had spent months watching how the creatures hunted, how they communicated, how they established territory. They learned that many of the monsters were actually highly intelligent species. "Sir, look at this." Krelina pointed to a section of text. The humans discovered that the giant insect creatures were not just mindless killers. They had complex social structures and mathematical reasoning abilities. The humans had figured out how to communicate with the insect hives using chemical signals. They learned the languages of the flying creatures through sound patterns. They even found ways to negotiate with the massive predators using displays of strength and respect. "This is insane," Thelvin said. "They tried to make friends with creatures that were trying to eat them." "And it worked," Vexhai added quietly. Reading further into the records, the humans had not just survived by hiding. They had convinced the monsters to accept them as part of the planet's ecosystem. But the process had taken decades and cost thousands of human lives. The records showed that early humans had volunteered for extremely dangerous missions. They would approach monster territories alone, carrying gifts and signals of peaceful intent. Many of these volunteers were killed, but some succeeded in making contact. "Sir, they established something called the Treaty of Claws," Kralana reported. It was an agreement between humans and the major monster species. Humans would provide certain services, and the monsters would allow them to live on the planet. What kind of services? The answer was in the detailed records. Humans had become mediators between different monster species that were in constant conflict. They helped negotiate territorial disputes. They provided medical care using their advanced technology. They even helped some species communicate with others for the first time. The humans became diplomats, Vexhai said in amazement. They turned themselves into the planet's peacekeeping force. But that was only the beginning. As the years passed, the relationship between humans and monsters had grown more complex. Humans learned to harvest materials from monster molts and shed skin. They developed medicines from monster biology. They even learned to breed smaller, friendlier versions of some species. "Sir, look at this breeding program data," Kralana called out. "They have created dozens of new species by combining different monster genetics. Some of these new creatures are designed specifically to help humans." The records showed images of creatures that looked like crosses between different monster species. Some were bred to be mounts that humans could ride. Others were designed to help with construction work. Still others were living tools that could perform complex tasks. "They turned evolution into engineering," Felvin said quietly. "The most shocking discovery was yet to come." As Vexhai read deeper into the human records, he found files labeled Alpha Challenges. These described the human practice that violated every principle of safe colonization. When humans encountered the largest and most dangerous predators, they did not run or hide. Instead, they challenged these creatures to single combat. The goal was not to kill the creatures, but to prove that humans deserved respect as fellow predators. According to this, Kralana read with disbelief, humans have successfully challenged and defeated over 50 different apex predator species. The victories established humans as the dominant species on the planet. The records included videos of these challenges. Vexhai watched in horror as single humans faced creatures the size of buildings. The humans used intelligence, tools, and tactics to overcome impossible odds. Many died in the attempts. But those who succeeded earned the permanent respect of entire monster species. This explains why the creatures do not attack their cities, Felvin realized. The monsters accept humans as the top predators. But the humans had not stopped there. Once they established dominance, they had used their position to create order on a chaotic world. They divided the planet into territories for different species. They established trade routes between monster populations. They even created courts where disputes between different species could be resolved peacefully. "Sir, they turned a Deathworld into a functioning society." Kralana said in wonder that the records showed the current state of human civilization. The planet now supported not just humans, but dozens of intelligent monster species living in cooperation. The underground cities the probe had discovered were shared spaces where different species worked together on projects that benefited everyone. Humans had become the administrators of a multi-species civilization. They ran schools where young monsters learned to interact peacefully with other species. They operated hospitals that treated injuries from dozens of different biological types. They even had universities where monster species shared knowledge with each other and with humans. According to these records, Vexhai reads slowly, the planet's total population is over 1 billion intelligent beings from 47 different species. The final section of the human records contained the most disturbing information of all. The humans had not just survived on one death world. Their records showed communication with other human colonies on other dangerous planets throughout the galaxy. "Sir, they have established colonies on at least 12 other worlds that we classify as uninhabitable," Kralana reported. Worlds with toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and deadly radiation. They have turned all of them into thriving multi-species civilizations. Vexhai stood in silence, trying to process what he had learned. These small, fragile humans had done the impossible. They had not just survived on death worlds. They had improved them. They had taken chaotic, dangerous planets and turned them into ordered societies. "Sir, there is one more thing," Thelvin said quietly. "They are asking if we would like to visit their world. They say they have prepared a safe area where we can land and meet with their representatives." Vex-High looked around at his crew. They all had the same expression of shock and curiosity. These humans had achieved something that no other species in the galaxy had ever imagined possible. "Send our response," Vex-High said finally. "Tell them we accept their invitation." He paused, then added, "And prepare a full report for headquarters. They need to know that everything we thought we knew about survival in the galaxy is wrong." Captain Vex-High stood in the shuttle bay of the Eternal Dawn, checking his equipment one final time. His crew had spent 2 days preparing for this landing on the human world. They wore their best protective suits and carried enough weapons to fight off a small army. Even so, Vex-High felt like they were flying into the mouth of a star beast. "Sir, the humans have marked a safe landing zone," reported pilot Nelkara. "It is near their main city, in an area they call Central Park." "How do we know their definition of safe matches ours?" asked Science Officer Krellina. "We do not," Vex-High admitted, "but we have come this far. We must see this through." The shuttle left the main ship and began its descent toward the planet. Through the viewing windows, the crew could see the massive creatures moving across the surface. Flying monsters with wings like storm clouds circled their shuttle, but kept their distance. "Sir, those creatures are following us," Nelkara said nervously. "They are not attacking," Vex-High observed. "They seem to be escorting us." As they entered the atmosphere, more creatures joined the escort. Giant flying reptiles that could swallow their shuttle whole flew alongside them like an honor guard. The crew watched in amazement as the monsters performed elaborate aerial displays, spinning and diving through the clouds. "I think they are welcoming us," Krellina said quietly. The shuttle approached the landing zone. From above, they could see humans gathering in the park. There were hundreds of them, standing in organized groups, but they were not alone. Creatures of all sizes stood with them. Some monsters stood over the humans like living buildings. Others were smaller, about the size of the shuttle itself. "Sir, look at the ground," Nelkara pointed out. Around the landing zone, massive creatures had positioned themselves in a perfect circle. They were not threatening the humans or moving toward the landing area. Instead, they seemed to be forming a protective barrier around the entire park. "They are guarding the meeting," Vex-High realized. The shuttle touched down on a flat area of grass. Through the windows, the crew could see humans approaching. They walked calmly, showing no fear despite being surrounded by creatures that could crush them without effort. "Sir, should we open the shuttle doors?" asked Nelkara. Before Vex-High could answer, something enormous moved overhead. The crew looked up to see a shadow passing over their shuttle. One of the planet's largest flying creatures had landed nearby. Its wings folded against its body as it settled onto the ground with surprising gentleness. From the creature's back, several humans climbed down using rope ladders. They moved with the easy confidence of people who had done this many times before. "They used the monsters as transportation," Krellana whispered in amazement. One of the humans walked toward their shuttle. She was a female, with dark hair and wearing clothes that appeared to be made from monster hide. She carried no weapons, but moved with the alert grace of a predator. The human stopped a few meters from the shuttle and raised her hand in what was clearly a greeting gesture. She spoke into a small device she carried. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Thelvin. "Put it on the main speaker." A voice filled the shuttle, speaking in heavily accented but understandable Zephyrian. "Welcome to Earth 7. I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Authority. Please exit your vehicle when you are ready. You are completely safe here. Vexhai looked at his crew. They all nodded, though he could see fear in their eyes. He activated the shuttle's door controls. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Immediately, the crew could smell the planet's atmosphere. It was thick with scents they did not recognize. Some smells were pleasant, like flowers. Others were sharp and dangerous, like the musk of large predators. Vexhai stepped out of the shuttle first. The gravity was slightly heavier than he was used to, but manageable. The air was breathable, though it tasted of strange chemicals. Commander Chun approached them with a smile. Captain Vexhai, I assume. We intercepted your crew roster from your probe's data transmission. Do not worry, we only took the information you were willing to share. You speak our language well, Vexhai said. We have been listening to galactic communications for many years. Your people broadcast quite a lot of information. We learned Zephyrian, Altarian, Centauri Common, and 15 other galactic languages. Krelena stepped out of the shuttle behind. Vexhai, you have been watching us? Watching and learning, Chun confirmed. We knew someone would find us eventually. We wanted to be ready. As they talked, Vexhai became aware of movement around them. The creatures that had formed the protective circle were shifting position. Some moved closer to get a better look at the alien visitors. Others seemed to be communicating with each other through sounds too low for Zephyrian ears to hear. Are we safe? Nelkara asked, eyeing a creature the size of a building that was moving toward them. Completely safe, Chun assured him. Thunderfoot there is just curious. He has never seen aliens before. The massive creature Chun called Thunderfoot approached slowly. Its head was the size of the shuttle, with eyes like small moons. It lowered its head until it was level with the group, and made a sound like distant thunder. Chun reached out and patted the creature's snout. Easy boy, these are our guests. Thunderfoot made another rumbling sound, then carefully extended what appeared to be a sensory organ toward Vexhai. The captain stood frozen as the appendage, thick as his body, gently touched his shoulder. He is saying hello, Chun explained. Thunderfoot is one of our senior diplomats. He helps negotiate agreements between different species. That creature is a diplomat? Felvin asked in disbelief. One of the best we have. Thunderfoot has prevented 3 territorial wars and established trade agreements between species that had been enemies for centuries. The massive creature made another rumbling sound, then slowly moved away. Vexhai realized he had been holding his breath. This way, please, Chun said, leading them toward the center of the park. There are others who want to meet you. As they walked, Vexhai saw more impossible sights. Human children were playing games with creatures that looked like they could bite a person in half. The creatures were gentle with the children, careful not to harm them with their claws or teeth. How do you train them to be so gentle? Krelena asked. We do not train them, Chun replied. We educate them. Every creature on this planet goes through our school system. They learn about cooperation, conflict resolution, and interspecies communication. You have schools for monsters? Nelkara asked. We have schools for citizens. Monster is not a word we use here. Every intelligent species on this planet is a citizen with rights and responsibilities. They approached a large group of humans, and creatures gathered around what appeared to be a temporary stage. On the stage stood representatives from different species. Vexhai could see the giant insects he had observed through the probe. There were also flying creatures, aquatic beings, and others he could not easily classify. This is our planetary council, Chun explained. Representatives from all 47 species meet here to discuss issues that affect everyone. One of the giant insects approached their group. It was easily 3 times taller than Vexhai, with multiple arms and eyes that seemed to see everything. At once, when it spoke, its voice was a series of clicks and whistles that somehow formed words. Welcome, sky visitors. the creature said in perfect Zephyrian. "I am Hive Speaker Zacht Ek. We are honored by your presence." Vex High stared up at the creature. "You learned our language as well?" "All citizens learn multiple languages. Communication is the foundation of our society." Chun gestured toward the stage. "Would you like to address the council? They have many questions about galactic civilization." "We have questions too," Vex High said. "How did you accomplish all this? How did you turn a Deathworld into this?" Chun smiled. "The same way any civilization develops, through cooperation, education, and mutual respect. The only difference is that we did it faster because we had to." "But the creatures here are so dangerous," Kralana protested. "Dangerous to outsiders who do not understand them," Chun agreed. "But no more dangerous than any intelligent species when you know how to communicate properly." A new voice joined the conversation. It was deep and rumbling, like the sound of avalanches. "Danger is relative, small sky beings." They turned to see another massive creature approaching. This one was even larger than Thunderfoot, with armor-like skin and spikes along its back. "This is Mountain Walker Grek," Chun introduced. "He is our Minister of Defense." "You have a monster as your defense minister?" Thelvin asked weakly. "Grek prefers the term geological life form," Chun said with a grin. "And he is excellent at his job. No hostile force has ever successfully invaded a world under his protection." Grek's massive head lowered toward the Zephyrian group. "Your ship weapons are primitive, your armor is weak. Your strategy is predictable, but you come in peace, so you are welcome." Vex High felt very small under the creature's gaze. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," Grek rumbled. "We must discuss why you are really here." Chun's expression became more serious. "Grek is right. We need to talk about your intentions. Are you explorers or are you scouts for a larger force?" "We are explorers," Vex High said quickly. "We are looking for worlds suitable for colonization." Captain Vex High sat in the conference room inside the human building, trying to process everything he had seen and heard. Across from him, Commander Sarah Chun poured a hot liquid into small cups. The smell was pleasant, but unfamiliar. "This is coffee," Chun explained, offering him a cup. "It is made from plants that grow in our highland regions. The plants only grow in soil enriched by thunderbear droppings." "Thunderbears?" asked Science Officer Kralana. "Massive omnivores, about the size of your shuttle. They help maintain the ecosystem in our mountain territories. In exchange, we provide them with medical care and protection from territory disputes." Vex High sipped the drink. It was bitter but energizing. "Everything here is connected, is it not? Every species depends on every other species. That is how stable ecosystems work," Chun agreed. "We learned that lesson quickly when we arrived. Fight the ecosystem, and it destroys you. Become part of it, and it supports you." The conference room was simple but comfortable. The walls were made from a material that looked like wood but felt warm to the touch. Living vines grew along the ceiling, providing soft light through bioluminescent flowers. "Commander Chun," Vex High said carefully, "we need to discuss the implications of this meeting. My government will want to know about your civilization. They will want to establish trade relations, perhaps cultural exchanges." Chun set down her cup and looked directly at him. "That is what we need to discuss. The question is not whether we want contact with galactic civilization. The question is whether galactic civilization is ready for contact with us." "What do you mean?" "Captain, your people classify this world as a death world that should be avoided at all costs. But to us, this is home. It is paradise. Do you understand what that means?" Kralana leaned forward. "It means your definition of livable worlds is very different from ours." "Exactly. While your people search for safe, predictable planets, we thrive on worlds that challenge us. We have colonies on planets with toxic atmospheres, extreme radiation, gravity fields that would crush your ships, and ecosystems filled with creatures that could destroy your entire fleet. Vex-High felt a chill run through his body. How many colonies do you have? Chun smiled. That is classified information. But I can tell you that humans have established successful settlements on every type of dangerous world your people have discovered. Volcanic worlds, ice planets, gas giant moons, asteroid fields with hostile life forms. If your people marked it as uninhabitable, we probably have a city there. That is impossible, Communications Officer Thelvin protested. No species could survive in all those environments. No single species could, Chun agreed. But we do not colonize alone anymore. Every human world is a multi-species civilization. We bring together the best qualities of dozens of different life forms. She activated a display screen on the conference table. Images appeared showing different worlds. Each one looked deadly to Zephyrian eyes, but each one showed thriving cities and civilizations. This is Inferno Station, built inside an active volcano. The native silicon-based life forms there taught us how to work with molten rock. Our cities are carved from living lava that never cools. The next image showed a world covered in ice and snow. This is Frosthaven. The temperature never rises above what you would consider deadly cold. But the crystalline creatures there showed us how to build with ice that is harder than your strongest metals. More images followed. Underwater cities on ocean worlds. Floating settlements in the atmospheres of gas giants. Underground complexes. On planets bombarded by deadly radiation. Every world presented different challenges, Chun explained. Every world taught us new ways to survive and thrive. Every world added new species to our growing civilization. Vex-High stared at the images. How long have you been doing this? 300 years since we left Earth, but we have been expanding rapidly in the last century. We now have permanent settlements in over 40 star systems. 40 star systems? Krillana gasped. And growing. You see, Captain, we discovered something your galactic civilization has not yet learned. The most dangerous worlds often contain the most valuable resources and the most intelligent life forms. While other species avoid these places, we make them our homes. Chun changed the display to show a map of local space. Red dots marked human colonies. Blue dots marked worlds claimed by other galactic civilizations. The red dots outnumbered the blue dots by more than 3 to 1. We have been watching galactic civilization for decades, Chun continued. We intercepted your communications, studied your technology, learned your languages. We know about the Zephyrian Empire, the Altarian Republic, the Centauri Federation, and 17 other major powers. Why did you not make contact before now? Vex-High asked. Because we were not sure you were ready. Most galactic civilizations expand by finding safe, empty worlds and terraforming them to match their home planets. You impose your environment on new worlds. We adapt ourselves to new environments. What does that have to do with contact? Chun leaned back in her chair. Everything. Your people see this world as a nightmare. We see it as home. Your people would terraform this place, destroying its ecosystem to make it suitable for Zephyrians. We became part of the ecosystem and made it better for everyone. The implications hit Vex-High like a physical blow. You are saying that our methods of colonization are wrong. Not wrong. Just limited. You can only live on worlds that are similar. To your home world, we can live anywhere. You expand slowly, carefully, avoiding risks. We expand rapidly, embracing challenges. You colonize empty worlds. We colonize worlds that are already full of life and make that life our partners. Chun. ACTIVATE D another display. This one showed comparative population growth charts. The human colonies were expanding at a rate that dwarfed anything in galactic civilization. In another century, human-led civilizations will outnumber traditional galactic colonies by 10 to 1. In 2 centuries, by 100 to 1. The galaxy is changing, Captain. The question is whether the established powers will adapt or be left behind. Thelvin spoke up nervously. Are you threatening us? Not at all. We are offering partnership, but partnership on our terms. What terms? Vexai asked. Chun stood and walked to the window. Outside, they could see humans and monsters working together on construction projects. First, no terraforming of worlds that already support life. If you want to live on a world with an existing ecosystem, you must integrate with that ecosystem, not destroy it. That could be difficult for my people to accept. Second, all intelligent species on a world must be treated as equal citizens. No slavery, no exploitation, no treating other species as lesser beings. Some of our colonies use native species as laborers, Kralana admitted. That would have to stop. Third, technology sharing. If you want access to our worlds and our knowledge, you must share your technology freely with all species in the system. And if we refuse these terms, Chun turned back to face them. Then you continue as you are, and we continue as we are. But Captain, consider this. We are offering you access to worlds and resources that your people cannot even imagine. We are offering partnerships with species so advanced that their knowledge could revolutionize your science. She gestured toward the window. Hive speaker Zoth, whom you met earlier, has solved mathematical problems that your best scientists have been working on for centuries. Mountain Walker Grek has engineering knowledge that could let you build ships 10 times larger than anything in your fleet. Thunder Bear wisdom includes agricultural techniques that could feed your entire empire. In exchange for what? In exchange for joining a truly galactic civilization. One that includes every form of life, not just the ones that look like you. Vexai thought about everything he had seen. The impossible cities, the cooperative monsters, the technology that merged biology with engineering. What happens if word of this gets out before our governments can make official decisions? Chun smiled grimly. Word will get out. We have made contact with survey ships from 6 different civilizations in the past year. Some have accepted our terms. Others have rejected them. The galaxy is already changing, Captain. The only question is whether your people will be part of the change or victims of it. Victims? Captain, we are not the only ones who have learned to thrive on death worlds. Some of our colonies have made contact with other species that your civilization has never encountered. Species that make the creatures on this world look gentle by comparison. Shun activated one final display. It showed ship designs unlike anything in the Zephyrian database. These are vessels designed by our partners on the crystal worlds of the Vega system. They are faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than anything your fleet could field. But they are exploration ships, not warships. Exploration ships built to survive in environments that would destroy traditional starships. Built to carry multi-species crews to worlds that no single species could explore alone. Built to expand civilization into parts of the galaxy that have never been touched. Vexai realized he was looking at the future of space exploration. Ships that could go anywhere, crews that could survive anything, civilizations that could thrive in any environment. Commander Chun, he said slowly, I need to send a message to my government. Of course. But consider your words carefully, Captain.